A group of friends is out on a road trip. Matt drives, while his brother Brian films their adventure from the front seat. Todd and his girlfriend, Elizabeth, sit in the back with Dora, Matt's girlfriend. The friend group is a bunch of adventurous young adults out and about while they make some horrible decisions, like launching fireworks from inside a car. More than anything, they all seem to be having fun. At the same time, Brian is interested in recording everything. Eventually, they reach woodland, now moving away from the plains towards the forested hills that follow as they approach their destination. At night, Matt watches as the girls try to burn Brian's beard from the back seat. Brian does not notice at first, but opens his eyes for a second to give a reaction before going back to sleep. Matt is irresponsible in the dark, looking at the women instead of the road. They try to burn Brian's beard again. Suddenly, a thud sound alerts everyone in the car that they've hit something on the road. Matt, Brian, and Todd leave the car to inspect the damage. They look at the headlights and find blood all over them. They deduce that a deer fell victim to their reckless driving, and Brian decides to follow it into the woods to look for it. However, Brian eventually hears strange noises, alerting the men that the animal they are seeking is not a deer. The women suddenly honk from the car, startling the men as they shout out and demand that the expedition returns. Everyone looks at the video recording to see what the car hit. Brian is furious at Elizabeth and Dora for burning his beard, but the women give him no opportunity to complain as they try to find the victim of their car's collision. They see the footage, rewinding and analyzing it as they realize that it shows a strange hairy creature unfamiliar to anyone. The group are going to Matt and Brian's uncle's cabin for their road trip. The darkness makes it difficult for the group to see where they are, but Matt and Brian know the place from their childhood, so they are able to traverse through until an obstacle appears in their field of view. The car's path is blocked by a fallen tree. Matt is ready to start walking to the riverfront house, but everyone complains about it as no one is willing to go out and walk in the dark. They eventually gather their belongings and some lamps for their walk to the cabin. They look around and walk through the woods until they eventually find the abandoned house. Now, the group is ready to take residence in their vacation home. The house is already open. Matt stole the keys to get in, but that seems unnecessary now. The house is in horrible condition. Dust and leaves cover the furniture and floor. Everyone complains about the condition. Everything is in disarray, so the group keep looking around to check everything inside. They go through the different rooms until they hear strange sounds from one of the last rooms left to check. Matt walks over to the door and slowly opens it. Suddenly, a pig comes out and rushes through the group as it evades them all and leaves the cabin. A unanimous decision is made to sleep in the car instead of the literal pigsty. With everyone back inside the car, sleeping, Brian is recording with night vision. As he films them, he hears a howling sound. He calls Matt to ask about the sound, but Matt does not acknowledge his brother's concerns. Brian is still curious and checks through the window for a better look. Matt becomes more agitated with Brian's paranoia, demanding that he shut the window and ignore whatever might be outside. Brian talks about something that Uncle Bob told them about the woods, not talking about it explicitly. Matt wants the story by Uncle Bob to be kept a secret so as not to alarm any of the others on the trip. Apparently, Uncle Bob told them something beforehand that explains many of the weird occurrences the group have experienced so far. Still, apparently, the story frightens him too. Brian complies, finally trying to go to sleep. The following day, Brian looks at the footage from overnight. The group inspects the car again, finding evidence of blood and hair from the same creature they saw. Brian films himself, explaining how he is going to use his GoPro for underwater footage. He is proud of his camera collection, but everyone else comes along to make fun of him. The documentation process is fun for Brian, but everyone else is more concerned with having an adventure in the woods. The group decide to go wild. They all film themselves as they ride over a ramp and jump into a lake with their bikes. The guys all take turns, until Brian decides to go skinny dipping, ending their lakeside fun. After they have their fun, Elizabeth and Todd leave the cabin. Brian films from the bushes as he stalks them going off into the woods. The two walk together until they reach a spot where they decide to make love in public. Brian sees a strange hairy creature from behind some trees, startling him into screaming and alerting the couple. They confront Brian, while Brian tries to divert their attention to the hairy creature. Todd takes the memory card from the creepy cameraman, clearly angry about Brian's attempt at eavesdropping on their lovemaking session. After hearing about his actions, Matt comes to dissolve the situation but gets angry with Brian. Brian still wants people to divert their attention to the creature. With no one listening, Brian stops trying to convince the rest of the group. Brian is alone in the woods, where he lights a as he returns to film the place where he saw the strange figure moving in the bushes. He retraces his steps until he eventually hears some peculiar sounds. He walks towards the source of the sounds as he explains how his Uncle Bob abandoned the hunting cabin because of some Bigfoot-like creature that supposedly resides there. So Brian tries to get close. As he calls out to Bigfoot, the monster responsible for many of the group's concerns and Brian's main subject of interest on their trip. He gets distracted by a massive footprint in the dirt, comparing it with his hands. Finally, he regains focus and starts to hear more sounds alluding to the creature's presence. He eventually spots something in the distance, but does not get a clear picture of the strange visitor. Still trying to make friends with the beast, he tries to commune with it, expecting the animal to respond to his attempts at conversation. The creature eventually growls from a distance, alerting Brian that his presence might be angering it. He finally backs off. Back inside the cabin, Brian lights another. He is up past midnight, sleeping outside in the hammock and waiting for Bigfoot to come. Brian is not concerned for his safety, as he thinks the creature will appear to give him something to film. As the stoned man keeps recording himself, he reenacts the creature's sound. His hysteria wakes Dora, who asks him about his strange noises until she realizes that Brian is stoned. She leaves, asking him to be quiet. Brian falls asleep recording himself. Suddenly, the leaves start rustling and then twigs start snapping. The noise wakes up Brian, who tumbles over his hammock. Brian collects himself and turns on his night vision to capture a glimpse of the creature at night. Eventually, he walks towards the beast, trying desperately to film it. The animal approaches closer, but is still not clearly visible. Brian cannot discern where the creature is, so he repeatedly looks at a tree until a barrage of toy bullets hit him and push him back. Matt and Todd decided to prank the man, as they do not believe in Bigfoot and wanted to get back at Brian for being a creep. However, the sound of the creature howling from the woods alerts the men to realize that Brian is not actually delusional. The men get back inside the house. They immediately enter, as the girls are already standing and alarmed by the sounds. They instantly switch off all the lights, hoping that the source of the sound ignores their cabin and leaves. They then all make an effort to stay quiet as the creature gets louder and louder. Dora is clearly in distress, wanting to leave, but the men assure her that the cabin is the safer option. They try to keep calm, as Brian's mention of the name Bigfoot does not help keep calm in the situation. Todd gets angry with Brian with every word about Bigfoot, so everyone quiets down to listen in on what is going on outside. Eventually, everyone reassures themselves that Bigfoot is not real, but then the sound of someone breaking into the house shuts them all up, as they now wait in silence for the creature to leave. Brian walks away from the group, trying to see if the house is currently empty. He takes a few steps and switches his camera on. Brian then shuts off the night vision and moves around the room. When he turns on his night vision again, Bigfoot immediately reveals itself and screams at the camera, alarming everyone. Startling Brian, everyone shouts alongside him as the creature leaves the house. With Bigfoot finally caught on camera, everyone is more open to accepting its existence. However, the monster remains on the estate at night, apparently breaking and trashing some things around the cabin. The following day, everyone takes their bike, as they now leave with all their things, heading back for civilization. Matt sees something wrong with the car from afar. As everyone gets closer, it becomes evident that the vehicle is completely destroyed. Bigfoot left the house last night to ruin the group's only way of escaping the cabin safely. Now seeing the creature's destructive tendencies, the group rush back to the house. They grab onto their things and run back. Their lives are not legitimately in danger. Everyone is sitting in the living room, trying to keep calm as they are stuck at the cabin. Dora assures everyone that Uncle Bob will come and save them, but the siblings deny that such help will ever come. The group believe that Matt and Brian informed their uncle about the trip before taking everyone to the cabin, but the two actually stole the key, so there is no way that anyone actually found them. This angers Dora even more, as she throws a tantrum and blames the two brothers for their predicament. Feeling responsible, Matt takes his bike, ready to take off into the woods to try to find a cell phone reception for a distress call. Dora is frightened for her boyfriend, begging him to stay with them instead of going out into Bigfoot's territory. Matt appears calm, to make sure no one worries about him, as he takes off with the bike in search of a cell phone signal. Matt starts riding, ensuring he does not stop, and he gets far enough before the creature realizes that he left the house. Dora is at home, sitting outside as she waits for her boyfriend to come back from the dangerous journey. Matt makes stops across his travels away from the cabin, but does not find a signal, so he keeps traveling further. Back home, Todd is now taking charge of doing anything possible to make the cabin safer for the people inside. They take all the furniture available to them and use it as barricades to cover all entry points in the house. As they move the furniture around, a carpet flips over, revealing a trapdoor leading into a basement. Brian opens it up as Todd climbs down and finds a light switch inside. Todd shouts with excitement as he finds one of Uncle Bob's hunting firearms in the basement. Todd walks out with a gun in his hand and some rounds. At first, everyone is worried about Todd's expertise as a gunman, as he points the gun around with no concern for whether there are bullets inside or not. Todd feels confident in his abilities as a shooter, his knowledge of paintball being all the experience he thinks he needs. Meanwhile, Matt is still in search of a signal. He keeps following along a dirt path, until eventually stopping at a point where he finds a signal. He drops his bike and calls 911 immediately. He tries to talk to the dispatcher on the phone, but the signal is not good enough for any of his words to go across. With 911 not working, he calls Uncle Bob and tries to talk to him, but faces the same issue. Suddenly, Bigfoot appears in front of him. Matt is stunned for a split second, before he turns around and gets on his bike to get away. As he starts racing off, the creature behind him is trying to keep up with his bike, successfully doing so. Uncle Bob is not able to hear Matt well, but hears the word cabin, realizing that his nephews never followed his advice to stay away from the woods. Eventually, Bigfoot reaches the bike and forces Matt off and onto the ground. Matt tries to get up. His bike is nowhere to be seen, and he finds that he is bleeding. He inspects the injury and realizes walking or running back will be impossible. He sees the bike and props it up to ride back to the cabin. However, he is in no shape to ride it with his injury, and the situation is made worse with Bigfoot now chasing after him. Eventually, it seems like the creature is gone, but one turnaround reveals Bigfoot right behind Matt. The beast knocks him out and drags Matt's injured body along with it into the woods. Everyone is waiting for Matt, as he has taken too much time getting the cell phone signal. Elizabeth reassures herself, thinking that Matt probably has found help and is on his way. Brian then apologizes for coming out to the cabin, despite the imminent danger that their uncle already warned them about. Todd asks the two of them to come back inside the house, with the sun going down, probably making them easier to hunt for Bigfoot. Brian and Dora do not move until the creature starts howling and running toward the house from a distance. Suddenly, the beast tosses Matt's bike toward the house, alerting the group that the attempt to get help has failed. They seal the door and start to prepare for an attack from Bigfoot. They realize that the creature tossed Matt's bike from the woods. The group inside is worried about Matt still, but is unsure about whether the beast is still outside. They check to see and confirm that Matt has fallen victim, and deduce that Bigfoot is waiting for the sun to go down to initiate his siege on the house. At night, everyone is waiting for the creature's imminent return. The women are in tears as Todd now prepares to confront the beast. The lights turn off as a result of Bigfoot's interference with the wiring from the outside, so Todd prepares to shoot the creature during its efforts to enter the cabin. The beast makes noises as it walks around the house, but Todd refuses to shoot without a clear vision. Eventually, Bigfoot goes silent, giving the group false hope that perhaps he cannot breach through. Bigfoot breaks through some glass, alarming everyone inside, until it eventually backs away after one warning round from Todd. The creature stops its attempts at forced entry. Suddenly, Bigfoot starts banging on the door, trying to force it open and get through the furniture blocking it. The creature struggles, scaring the women inside, but Todd takes it as an opportunity to get a hit on Bigfoot and force it out once again. Bigfoot comes around from another door, where it grabs Elizabeth and starts hurting her. Dora tries to help, but the creature is strong and ruthless, not letting go until it tosses Elizabeth's body like a toy. The group then run into the basement, closing the hatch behind them and hoping Bigfoot does not find them. Everyone is still inside, but the creature struggles to find them in the darkness. While inside the basement, Bigfoot tries to look around the cabin for the group, but does not consider that they might be underneath it. Brian looks through the cracks to see if he can spot Bigfoot upstairs. Also, the people in the basement try not to make noise, but eventually believe that the monster has given up on its search when they hear the cabin go completely silent. Brian looks through the cracks in the basement ceiling again. Bigfoot suddenly shows itself through the small openings, scaring away Brian and alerting the creature of their location. The creature pauses, but eventually starts breaking through the hatch leading into the basement. Todd is prepared with his gun, ensuring that he is ready to take a clean shot when given the opportunity. Eventually, the creature breaks through the hatch, slowly trying to claw at the people in the basement. With the beast forcing its way through the wooden planks, Todd is able to get a clean shot and force the beast away momentarily. However, the creature decides to make a complete retreat. With no trace of the beast, everyone tries to collect themselves, as they believe Bigfoot is finally gone. Dora is still crying, but she decides to check up on Elizabeth, who is completely unresponsive. They check and realize Elizabeth is now another casualty. The following day, the cabin is in complete disarray. The people inside are still hiding in the corner of the basement, until Brian decides to check up on the status of the house. He looks around to see more chaos and destruction, as everything is in disarray. He alerts everyone that the vicinity is clear, calling out to them so that the group can leave. Elizabeth now lies lifeless on the floor as everyone leaves the basement. Eventually, they get out of the basement turn by turn. Dora comforts Todd, who is clearly in shock after losing his girlfriend. Brian also finds blood on the floor, showing that one of the gunshots got a clean hit. Everyone makes it out of the house to see what is going on outside. Brian first notices that the door also has more blood covering it, but moves past it to check on the bike thrown at the cabin the previous day. Brian decides to see what happened to his brother, retrieving the GoPro attached to his bike. Brian loses his composure as he realizes that his brother is probably gone forever. Everyone prepares to depart as they leave a note in honor of Matt, and leave behind Elizabeth's body to retrieve after finding help. They walk away from the cabin and past their destroyed car, until they are finally away from the place. Brian sees a trail that he thinks is a good shortcut for the three of them to take. Knowing the place, he assures the other two that the path is a better route for them. Todd hesitates initially, but he decides to listen to the person with the most experience in these forsaken woods. The group start walking through the wilderness again. They walk around the rough terrain of this trail that Brian recommended they take, complaining about the inconvenient journey. They eventually come to the same place where Bigfoot caught Matt. They find Matt's bag, giving Dora hope that maybe her boyfriend might still be alive. She looks around, but only finds remains of his biking equipment. Seeing that Matt is nowhere nearby, the thought of his passing finally settles in for Dora, who breaks down and cries for her beloved. Brian tries to help calm her down, her screaming and crying possibly alerting Bigfoot of their location. With grief subsiding, the group start to move again, while there is still light. They make it through rough terrain and keep walking until sunrise. At night, they take shelter underneath a roof and lie in a cramped space together. Brian apologizes once again for the trauma that the group is experiencing on the trip, now taking responsibility for Elizabeth's passing. Brian knows this should never have happened, especially if the brothers were more responsible. Brian tries to smoke a but seeing Dora next to him makes him realize that it is not the right time. He abandons his obsession with the and accepts the reality of the situation instead of trying to numb himself to it with. Suddenly, Bigfoot breaks a twig and whimpers nearby, alarming the three taking shelter. Todd immediately braces for the creature's appearance, preparing for an attack. The beast starts growling until Todd loses his composure and leaves their shelter to confront it. He wants revenge, shouting for it, as he demands that the creature show itself for a fight. He fires a few bullets in thin air, trying to intimidate the animal, but the rounds go to waste as Bigfoot is nowhere in sight. The creature remains close, so the three survivors choose to get away before they become close enough for the beast to attack. The animal keeps its distance as Todd utilizes suppressive fire to keep it from chasing after it. Eventually, the group finds an RV, reassuring the group that there might be someone inside to help. However, the RV is abandoned. Suddenly, the group can hear Matt's screams in the woods. He is screaming in anguish, alerting the group that he is alive but in great pain. Dora takes the lead as they all run over to the noise source. They reach the entrance of some sort of tunnel. The sound seems closer now. Matt is inside. So now the group have to take the step and try to save Matt from Bigfoot's own nest. Brian chooses to go inside to save his brother. Todd does not want to take such a reckless action, but Brian's love for his brother pushes him to stand and try his best to save Matt. Brian takes his night vision camera alongside the gun and crawls inside the tunnel. He looks around, trying to find his brother. Brian crawls along the floor, searching for his brother until finally, the night vision helps Brian spot Matt. The brothers are finally united, but Matt is in horrible condition, begging to be left behind. Matt demands that Brian leave on his own, to which the camera shows that Matt has lost function in both of his legs, due to the creature crushing them completely. Suddenly, the beast is near where the brothers are crawling, warranting Brian to take a shot, successfully landing it. Brian gives the siblings hope in this desperate situation as they try to get out of the cave together. The shot lands as the creature is now wailing in pain. Adrenaline rushes through injured Matt as he latches onto his brother and makes one last effort to escape. Brian helps Matt as the two siblings crawl out of the cave. The crawl to the entrance of this cave is painful for Matt, as his injuries keep him suffering through the slow journey back outside. They eventually reach the other two waiting outside the tunnel, reuniting the four friends left. With the sunrise, the group all walk together towards somewhere they can lay Matt down to inspect his injuries. Eventually, they reach the RV again, suspecting that there may be a bed inside. After much struggle, Matt is finally taken inside and allowed to rest. Dora gives the anguished man water, until Brian's phone rings and reveals that the group's fate seems to have changed for the better. Brian gets a call from Uncle Bob. He asks about his nephews and the cabin, but the signals are still too weak for any words to reach him. Uncle Bob is at the cabin, meaning help is nearby, but the group is unsure if Uncle Bob knows that they have left the vicinity of the cabin. Todd deduces that fireworks can help Uncle Bob find him, despite the clear sky and sunlight possibly getting in the way. Todd leaves the RV to light the fireworks for Uncle Bob to follow. He runs out and away to get a clean launch for the fireworks. He eventually reaches a spot and lights them up. They launch after a slight delay, as the fireworks start flying out and blowing up in the light of day. With the fireworks being clear, even in the sunlight, the group feel way better about their chances at survival. Suddenly, from behind the smoke created by the fireworks exploding, Bigfoot appears before Todd and runs toward him. The chase commences as Todd tries to outpace the creature behind him in a race back to the RV. Todd keeps himself at a distance throughout the sprint, but falls short of being able to get into the RV safely, so he slides underneath it, trying to force the creature into slamming straight into a wall. With the creature right outside, Brian and Dora are scared out of their minds, but understand that they cannot assist Todd outside without a weapon. Todd tries to fight out of the creature's clutches, doing everything possible with his physical strength. Brian and Dora can hear him fighting Bigfoot, until the creature pulls Todd out from under the vehicle, dragging him across the ground by the legs. The creature takes Todd away into the woods, where it promptly puts an end to his suffering by smashing him against a tree branch. The sound of Bigfoot and Todd's struggles goes away. Dora silently cries as Brian tries to look for Bigfoot and Todd through the RV's window. Suddenly, Todd's body is tossed at the RV, slamming on it and falling flat on the ground. Todd has also fallen victim, as the creature has taken another life. With the creature intimidating the remaining survivors inside the RV, it slowly walks towards the vehicle to dispose of everyone inside. The creature starts banging on the door of the RV, trying to force its way inside. The door is slammed shut, so Bigfoot gives up and takes another approach. After a brief pause, the beast pushes the entire vehicle toward the nearby cliff. The unnatural strength of Bigfoot lets it slowly push the RV closer to the edge, as the people inside start rushing to get out. Matt is completely unresponsive, but Dora and Brian keep trying to wake him up, as they need to leave their shelter before Bigfoot pushes them off the cliff and into their graves. Their efforts yield no results as the creature shoves them off the edge. The RV tumbles down the cliff, tossing and turning as the furniture and people inside roll around uncontrollably. With everything in disarray, the survivors inside are stuck with their fate no longer in their control. The RV finally comes to a stop. Brian is injured with a cut across his abdomen, but can move around fine. Matt is lying next to him, completely unresponsive, but Brian keeps trying to force him awake until his attention is caught by the sound of Dora in pain. Brian gets up to inspect her situation as she lies underneath a piece of rubble. Brian uncovers the woman, revealing blood coming out of her mouth as Dora struggles to breathe in her condition. Dora slowly passes away right before Brian's eyes. But not a moment is available for grief as Bigfoot looms over the vehicle and jumps off the cliff onto the vehicle's door. Brian runs out of the RV from behind as the creature forces its way inside the vehicle. Bigfoot ignores the bodies inside the vehicle and runs across Brian's exit point. He runs until he eventually reaches a cliff overlooking a creek. Looking back, he notices the creature still behind him, so he keeps running along the creek until he eventually stumbles and falls. Realizing that struggling will not help him survive against the creature, Brian plays the last trick up his sleeve and pretends to be unresponsive. The creature shouts and screams at Brian, trying to force him into struggling or fighting back. But Brian's acting leads the creature to believe that the man fell victim to his clumsiness during their chase. Eventually, Bigfoot stops trying to force a reaction out of the body and moves away from Brian. Given the opportunity, Brian tries to get a glance at his surroundings, looking for the creature's whereabouts. The creature reveals having never left, as it grabs his leg and drags him away. The creature then goes to the different sites of its rampage, until it eventually finds Todd's body near the cliff. It drags the body all the way to where it also seems to have left behind Brian. The creature leaves Todd next to Brian. After a while, Brian decides to finally get up, but backs away in fear at the sight before him. All his friends lie next to each other before him, their lifeless bodies covered in blood and in horrible condition. Brian tries to wake them up, but eventually accepts reality and walks to a nearby ditch. Inside the ditch, he sees the body of a smaller Bigfoot-like creature. As Brian looks over the body of a baby Bigfoot, the parent reveals itself from behind and shoves him down. Flies cover the baby Bigfoot's body, as the parent wants Brian to see what they did to the child. Brian keeps apologizing, but the creature keeps pushing him and forcing him down in anger. Uncle Bob finally shows up, getting a shot at Bigfoot and forcing the monster away from his nephew. He runs to Brian, as Bigfoot has run away from the site and left them behind. Brian wants Uncle Bob to take the bodies with them, but his uncle knows the situation is dire, so they leave immediately for Uncle Bob's car. They run through the woods until they reach a staircase leading to Uncle Bob's pickup truck. Suddenly, Bigfoot lunges and incapacitates Brian's uncle, leaving him to grab the gun and run toward the vehicle. With the beast running after him, Brian decides to face off with it. Brian and Bigfoot now face each other, giving the first clear look at the beast since Brian's journey began. Brian has the upper hand with a firearm, ready to end the beast's life, but hesitates to shoot. The creature never harmed anyone because it wanted to. Rather, it was getting revenge for its victim child. Brian sees the injured monster and backs away, offering no resistance as he places the gun on the staircase. Brian came to this trip believing that Bigfoot is supposed to be a peaceful creature, giving the beast one last opportunity to prove him right. Brian cowers down, awaiting his inevitable end. He whimpers, waiting for the creature to lunge and end his life. He waits, only for the creature to walk away and decide that enough damage has been done. The group may have taken the life of its child, but the creature has caused enough suffering to exact its revenge, leaving behind the lone survivor, Brian, to grieve the tragedy that he has just experienced.